Hi, so I'm going to do a read aloud on the story The Epic Fail of Arturo Zamora. So this book is perfect for 6th through 8th grade. It's a realistic fiction and is guided reading letter W. So I'm going to share what the cover of this book looks like. Okay, and so this is the cover, The Epic Fail of Arturo Zamora, and I just want you to take a look and predict what you think this story may be about. Wonderful. I love your predictions. So as you can see, there's like a tow truck at the bottom. Looks like a little hut. Maybe it's a restaurant, some buildings and some palm trees. A boy with an apron. Wonderful. So now we're going to start reading. We're going to start at chapter 11, and it's called Adding Mucho Más. After my dishwashing shift the next day, I waited patiently for Carmen in the dining room at La Cocina. So, what do you think La Cocina is? It's the restaurant. It's in Spanish. So, I sat at one of the empty tables in the back and watched as guests finish their lunches and went about their day. But where I was sitting, I could hear a few different conversations. They were all talking about the exciting new building. Can you believe the gym they're going to have, said Mrs. Prado, a lady who wore too much makeup and always seemed to be wearing workout clothes. It's going to be amazing, her friend said. I always thought those ladies were really funny, and I liked that they came to the restaurant to eat after exercising. But now I find myself getting annoyed at how loud they spoke. Two guys who I know worked at the bank on the corner leaned over the table to join the conversation. Oy, pero, did you see that there's going to be a pool and a roof and one on the second floor? How sick is that? Man, I'm totally buying an apartment there. For sure, it's a dope investment opportunity. I was totally shocked when I overheard Annabelle and George talking. So let's pause. Why do you think Arturo was shocked when he overheard Annabelle and George? Yeah, because they were talking about buying an apartment where the restaurant was, and they always go to the restaurant. So Arturo was shocked. Maybe instead of buying a house, we look into a place in the new building. What? I accidentally blurted out. Annabelle and George turned around, but I put up a menu so they wouldn't see me. I couldn't believe people were eating at La Cocina, enjoying our food, and talking about how cool People Place was going to be. Didn't they realize that if they were a people place, there would be no La Cocina? Maybe they didn't notice La Cocina was missing from people's plans. The door opened and Carmen walked in with Abuela, which I didn't expect. The chatter stopped. It was like all 40 plus people in the restaurant quit talking at the same time. That didn't stop Abuela from being Abuela. So, what is Abuela in Spanish? Does anybody know? Yes, grandmother, wonderful. She took Carmen by the hand and greeted several tables by introducing Carmen. Abuela stroked Carmen's hair as she explained who she was, and Carmen politely accepted the compliments the guest gave her. I felt a little rush of heat to my cheeks when I saw Carmen smiling, but it was probably because I was still hot from being in the kitchen for 5 hours. Aunt Tootie followed Abuela nervously like a chicken pecking around for seeds. She kept telling her, Mommy, siéntate. So what do you guys, but Abuela didn't want to sit down. So what do you think siéntate means? To sit down, yes. Greeting guests was what Abuela loved most, besides cooking and family. Carmen scanned the restaurant and saw me sitting in the corner table. As she walked towards me, she smiled, and her shiny, colorful bracelets lit up the room. Her smile was almost too bright, so I looked down at the table and started inspecting the silverware for any spots or stains. So, she said, good shift. It was fine, I said. I wish Martin didn't wear Maria, bro. It's nasty, smelling the deodorant mixed with the food and dirty plates for 5 hours. I can imagine. So, like I said, I did a little more digging, and look what I found. Karen pulled up something on her phone and handed it to me. It was an article from a local paper in northern Florida talking about the word I had never heard before, gentrification. So let's stop. What do you all think gentrification means? Wonderful, wonderful. I love your answers. So, what does that word mean? I asked Carmen. It was when wealthy people come into a neighborhood to redevelop it to increase its value. It usually pushes out people and businesses that have been around for a long time. So let's stop again. Do you think this is good? Do you think it's bad? Great. Do you think that's what Wilfredo's doing? It's what he's been doing in different towns, she said, scrolling down. See here. Apparently, Wilfredo people has bought other luxury high-rises in the coastal towns and around the country. They all looked exactly the same as the one as he proposed in Canal Grove. Whoa, he's got like 10 other buildings. Yeah, and that's not even the worst part. Here, check this out, she said, pointing. I looked at the page. Request for proposals for the purchase and development of property owned by the city. It was the same kind of proposal my mom had put in for the expansion, but this one was new. It was a request for a purchase of the land right next to the parking lot, the land that La Cocina was on. I kept reading and my mouth went completely dry. Wilfredo People's name was on the proposal to lease the property. How can he do this? Carmen yelled so loud. She startled Mr. Michaels, the guy who owned books and more books. He nearly spilled his ceviche all over himself. So let's stop. Why do you think that Arturo's mouth went dry when he heard this information? Yes, because he's trying to lease out where La Cocina is, and that's his family's restaurant. He doesn't want it to see it go. Perdon, Carmen said, offering him a napkin. That must be what Mom was talking about on the phone with Mop's dad. But it needs to be approved. The city needs to say yes. Yeah, I said, and realized I hadn't seen Commissioner Garcia at La Cocina for lunch with his staff. I don't know. Something doesn't feel right. Abuela slowly shuffled to our table, carrying two large glasses filled to the rim with creamy orange smoothies. Dos batidos de mango, she said as she handed us glasses garnished with little mango wedges. So she handed them mango smoothies. Gracias, abuela, I said. I shifted uncomfortably, like I was literally sitting on top of all the secrets I was keeping from abuela. She smiled and motioned for me to drink my batido, but I just couldn't do it. I couldn't hold everything in anymore. What happened next, I'm not proud of. It was like popping the lid on a pressure cooker before the whistle signaled it was time to open it. Carmen chimed in excitedly every time I stopped to take a breath. Abuela was silent for a long time. She stroked her silk scarf, and every once in a while she looked like she was going to speak, and finally put me out of my misery. Carmen stared at Abuela like a pastry chef carefully sprinkling coconut shavings onto white chocolate cream cheese frosting. Careful, concentrated, and determined. Abuela's lips curled into a smirk and finally broke into silence. Son un buen equipo, she said, pointing from me to Carmen. Something about Abuela saying Carmen and I had made a good team made me think about Abuelo's letter. When did they start thinking of themselves as a good team? I shook my head and tried to focus. So, what do you think that Arturo is thinking about here? Yeah, he's thinking about his abuela and abuelo. So his grandma and his grandma getting together and meeting each other, and it reminds him of him and Carmen. So let's continue with the story. Abuela, what do we do? I asked. Habla con tu mama, Arturo. So she said, talk to your mom, Arturo. I tried to tell Abuelo that talking to my mom was pointless. Mom was too busy and she'd probably just tell us to keep business as usual. Abuela, we could lose the restaurant. She looked serious for a moment and glanced at Carmen again. Te dije como tu abuelo y yo nos conocimos, Arturo. Yes, Abuela, I told her, wondering why in the world she was talking about meeting Abuelo for the first time. Pero, she said, tú sabes lo que pasó después. I didn't know what happened after they first met because I hadn't read any of the other letters. Carmen pressed her to tell the story and I started getting impatient with Abuela. Now is not the time to tell family stories. But I knew better than to interrupt Abuela, so I kept my mouth shut while tapping my fingers on the bottom of the table. Abuela said that after she agreed to a first date with Abuelo, they became inseparable. Abuela would pick her up at the laundromat and together they folded clothes for her entire family. Afterwards, they would hop into Abuela's taxi and drive all the way to Abuela's house, where her mother, grandmother, aunts, uncles, and cousins all lived. Y después, she said, cocinaba una cena para él. She cooked a meal for Abuela every time he dropped her off at home. Abuela's home, it turned out, was kind of unusual. Her family ran a paladar, which was a restaurant inside someone's house. People from all over the city and plenty of foreigners came to visit her family's paladar. Abuela was one of the best cooks around, and she was only 20 years old. So, do you think that was fairly young to have her own restaurant? Yeah, she wasn't that old. Abuela laughed. Pero tu abuelo no era buen cocinero. Abuela wasn't that great, so great of a cook, apparently. I remember how she said he burnt a steak once. He helped the paladar by serving customers, cleaning dishes, and greeting people, while the rest of Abuela's family chipped in where they could. It sounded like a lot of how things were run at La Cocina now. Nos divertimos mucho, she said, remembering how fun it was. One year after they first met, Abuelo and Abuela got married. She smiled and took my hand out from under the table. Lo más importante, she said, es el amor y la fe. But love and faith weren't going to save the restaurant. What we needed was a plan. We needed to get the family together. We needed to get the community involved. Why wasn't Abuela making sense? I know Abuela, but the restaurant, the neighborhood, we have to fight for it. Arturo, she said, staring at me with her blue-gray eyes. Hay mucho más que eso. She got upset. She got up and said she wanted to go home because she was feeling a little tired. Before we left, Abuela said goodbye to every guest in the dining room in her style, stroking faces, caressing hair, and squeezing shoulders. What do you think caressing hair means? Yeah, like rubbing, touching their hair smoothly. We walked down the hallway to the kitchen, and she stopped in front of the wall of photographs. She pointed to an old one of her and Abuelo, who was wearing an apron and a cap, his big ears sticking out. He was shorter than Abuela, but you could tell he felt like the tallest man in the world. He was smiling with pride at Abuela, her tray of arroz con mariscos, sitting in the first restaurant they'd ever run together. Abuela coughed more than usual on our walk home. We slowed our pace, but it didn't seem to help. By the time we arrived, Abuela had serious trouble catching her breath. What do you think is going on with Abuela? Okay, let's continue reading to find out. Let's get her inside, I said, and handed Carmen the keys. She quickly opened the door, and a blast of freezing cold air from the AC hit our faces. I walked Abuela to her bed. Abuela, are you okay? Agua, por favor. Un poco del agua, she said between coughs. Carmen bolted to the kitchen and brought back some water while I dialed my mom. Mom, I said while Carmen gently lifted Abuela upright and held the cup to her mouth. Abuela won't stop coughing. Okay, okay. I hung up and slowly rubbed Abuela's back like my mom told me to. Her cough slowed down, but my heart sped up. Be okay, be okay. It was the only thought in my mind. Abuela closed her eyes, held her breath, and didn't move. Abuela, Abuela, I yelled. Finally, she turned to me looking dazed. Estoy bien, mi amor, she said, slowly grasping for the glass of water. So she said, I'm okay, or I'm good, my love. She reclined back. I reached for her palm at the same time Carmen did, and we touched. I went to pull away, but Abuela closed Carmen's hand in mine as her breathing started to steady. All right, so that is the end of chapter 11. So, what do you think is going to happen at in the next chapter as we read? Wonderful. I love your predictions. So, I think the main idea of this chapter was to keep your family close and to speak up for what you believe in, because that's what Arturo did during this chapter. And I hope that you all continue to read the story. It's a very great novel. Thank you.